Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income. We've got a lot to unpack today, looking at UBI and how it could reshape education. I'm really excited to dive into this.
Yeah, I'm here, ready to unpack, I guess. Still not convinced about this whole UBI thing, but happy to hear what's new.
Cautiously optimistic as always, looking forward to a productive discussion and hopefully addressing some of the real-world challenges that UBI faces.
Great. So, to kick us off, I've been following this feed of top UBI articles, and it's fascinating to see the different angles people are exploring. Things are evolving so fast.
Top UBI articles sounds like a very niche interest. I'm more interested in what the real people, the folks actually paying taxes, think about all this.
It's important to track the research, Otto. Policy decisions need to be based on evidence, not just gut feelings, right? But yes, public perception is key.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's a feedback loop, right? Research informs the proposals and the public's reaction, understanding, or misunderstanding, informs the research. One article that caught my eye was this one discussing UBI in the UK. It frames it as a path to equality and economic security.
Economic security? In this economy? Come on, how's giving everyone free money supposed to magically fix everything? Where's the money coming from? I bet it's just going to be more taxes on the middle class.
Well, the article suggests taxation reforms, wealth and carbon taxes, for example, and consolidating existing welfare programs.
See, that's where it gets tricky. Wealth taxes are notoriously difficult to implement and enforce, and consolidating welfare. That sounds good in theory, but what about the specific needs those programs address? Are we sure a UBI can cover all the bases without leaving some vulnerable people behind?
That's a valid point, Sarah. The UK article mentions tailoring the UBI to ensure disabled individuals receive additional support. So, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's more of a baseline, with add-ons for specific needs.
Add-ons, so more bureaucracy then? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of simplifying things? The UK already has universal credit, which is a mess. What guarantees UBI won't be the same?
Exactly. Universal credit is supposed to be simpler, but it's plagued by administrative issues and, frankly, underfunding. It's a cautionary tale. We need to learn from those mistakes.
Right, but the key difference is the universal aspect. Universal credit is means tested, which creates complexity and exclusion. A true UBI, in theory, eliminates that initial hurdle. Less bureaucracy in that first step, at least.
Okay, in theory, but what about the practice? Someone's got to manage this massive program. I still think it opens the door to corruption and waste.
And even if it's well managed, there's the question of inflation. If everyone has more money, won't prices just go up? Then we're back to square one.
That's a classic concern, and it needs to be addressed. But some argue that increased demand could also stimulate innovation and production, potentially mitigating inflation. It's a complex equation.
Sounds like wishful thinking to me. I still think focusing on job creation and skills training is a better long-term solution. Give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish.
Absolutely, and no one's saying UBI is a replacement for that. It's more like providing a fishing rod and some bait to everyone so they have a better chance of learning to fish, or whatever they choose.
I like that analogy. It's about empowerment, not just handouts. It's about agency. If people have a basic safety net, they can take more risks, pursue education, start businesses. It could unlock a lot of potential.
Risks? What if they take risks and fail? Then they're just back where they started, but with less UBI money. Seems like a bad deal to me.
But failing is part of learning, right? It's about creating a space where people can fail without falling into complete destitution. UBI could reduce the fear of failure, encourage innovation, and boost entrepreneurship.
Okay, but let's be realistic. Not everyone is going to become an entrepreneur. What about the people who just don't want to work? Will UBI incentivize laziness?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the research is mixed. Some studies show minimal impact on workforce participation. Others show a slight decrease. But even if some people choose to work less, is that necessarily a bad thing? Maybe they'll dedicate more time to caregiving, volunteering, or creative pursuits.
Volunteering? Creative pursuits? Sounds like a nice life for some, but who's going to do the essential jobs, the ones nobody wants to do? Are we going to have to pay people even more to clean toilets?
That could be a factor. Wages for undesirable jobs might have to increase to attract workers, but maybe automation can help with some of those tasks. It's all interconnected.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the future of work and the role of education. If UBI provides a safety net, people can afford to retrain and adapt to the changing job market. They can pursue education that's aligned with their passions and aptitudes, rather than just what pays the bills.
Retrain? Easier said than done. You can't just force people to learn new skills. And what if the new skills become obsolete in a few years? It's a never-ending cycle.
That's why we need to rethink education itself. Instead of just memorizing facts, we need to focus on critical thinking, problem solving, and adaptability. Education needs to be lifelong and personalized.
Yes, a UBI-enabled personalized learning approach could be transformative. Imagine students having the financial security to explore different subjects, pursue apprenticeships, and tailor their education to their individual needs and interests.
Sounds expensive. Who's paying for all this personalized education? And what about standardized testing? How do we ensure everyone is meeting a certain minimum standard?
Standardized testing might need to be reevaluated. Maybe we should focus on portfolios, project-based learning, and other ways to assess skills and competencies that are relevant to the real world.
And with UBI, students wouldn't have to work part-time jobs just to survive. They could dedicate more time and energy to their studies, or to extracurricular activities that develop their skills and passions.
So we're basically paying kids to go to school and do what they want. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. No discipline, no work ethic.
That's a very narrow view. Education isn't just about acquiring skills for a job. It's about developing well-rounded individuals, critical thinkers, and engaged citizens. UBI could free people to pursue education for its own sake, not just as a means to an end.
Exactly. It's about fostering a love of learning, encouraging creativity, and empowering people to contribute to society in meaningful ways, not just through traditional employment, but through art, innovation, community service.
Okay, I get it. Sounds all flowery and idealistic. But let's get back to reality. Where's the money coming from? You can't just wave a magic wand and create unlimited funds.
Well, the UK article mentioned wealth and carbon taxes. Another article I saw highlighted Alaska's sovereign wealth fund, which funds their UBI program. It depends on where you are.
Alaska is a unique case. Their fund is tied to oil revenues, which are highly volatile. It's not a sustainable model for every country or region.
Exactly. Relying on commodities is risky. What happens when the price of oil crashes? Does everyone's UBI get cut in half?
That's a risk, yes. Diversification of revenue streams would be crucial for a sustainable UBI program. It's not a simple plug-and-play solution.
And we need to consider the potential for unintended consequences. What if UBI leads to a decline in charitable giving? What if it exacerbates existing social divisions?
Or what if authoritarian regimes use UBI to control their populations, undermining public services and silencing dissent?
That's a really important point. UBI needs to be implemented with strong democratic safeguards and transparency to prevent abuse.
Absolutely. It's not just about the money. It's about the values and principles that underpin the program. It has to be rooted in human rights, social justice, and democratic participation.
Sounds good in theory, but I'm still skeptical. I need to see concrete evidence that this can actually work without bankrupting the country or creating a bunch of lazy freeloaders.
And that's why pilot programs are so important. We need to test different models, gather data, and learn from our mistakes before implementing UBI on a large scale. There's a lot going on in this area.
But we need to be careful about extrapolating from small-scale pilots to national-level implementation. The dynamics are very different.
Agreed. And we need to consider the specific context of each pilot. What works in Finland might not work in the United States or the UK.
Speaking of specific contexts, I saw an article about a mayor in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, proposing a UBI. Seems a bit ambitious, considering they just raised taxes by 24%.
That raises some serious red flags. A 24% tax hike, and then they want to implement UBI. That sounds like a recipe for a taxpayer revolt.
The article mentions that a modest $330 monthly stipend would require doubling real estate taxes. That's a hard sell to say the least.
You think? I can't imagine anyone being happy about that. And what about people moving into the county to take advantage of the UBI? That would put even more strain on the system.
Exactly. UBI could create unintended migration patterns, which would need to be addressed. It highlights the need for careful planning and coordination between different levels of government.
The mayor's idea is to start with research and a community pilot, which is a smart approach. But they need to be transparent about the costs and benefits and engage the community in the decision-making process.
Transparency in government? Good luck with that.
We have to demand it. Public trust is essential for any social program to succeed.
And it's not just about the money. It's about building a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their background or circumstances.
I still think a good job is the best way to achieve that, not some government handout.
And I think UBI could be a tool to help people find those good jobs or create their own.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society, where everyone has the basic resources they need to live a dignified life and pursue their full potential. That potential for education is particularly interesting.
All right. I'm still not convinced, but I'm willing to keep an open mind. Show me the data, show me the results. I'm waiting.
Me too. Cautiously optimistic, but with a healthy dose of skepticism. The devil is always in the details.
Well, this has been a great start to the conversation. Thanks for sharing your perspectives. It's clear that UBI is a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to keep having. And I'm really thankful that we are having it.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be back to poke holes in the next batch of UBI articles.
Looking forward to it. Let's keep the critical analysis coming.
Absolutely. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in to UBI Unplugged. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the future of income.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Now, moving on to Manchester, I saw an article talking about a basic income plan for homeless people in the city. It seems Mayor Andy Burnham is interested.
Yes, I saw that. 1,600 pounds a month. That's substantial. It would be transformative for someone experiencing homelessness.
Transformative or enabling? Will they use it to get back on their feet, or will it just fund their addictions?
That's a valid concern, Otto. But the article mentions that the pilot program is designed to provide financial security as a platform to turn their lives around. The idea is that having a stable income reduces stress and allows people to make better decisions.
And it's not just about money. The pilot program should also include access to support services like counseling, job training, and housing assistance. A holistic approach is crucial.
Holistic? More bureaucracy. I bet half the money will go to administrators and consultants, not to the homeless people themselves.
That's a risk, of course. But the article mentions that the costs could be raised through a combination of central government support, public donations, and reallocated service funding. So, it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about using existing resources more effectively.
And it's about prevention. The article mentions that the Labor government is targeting a shift towards prevention in its bid to reduce homelessness. UBI could be a key part of that strategy.
Prevention? How about preventing people from becoming homeless in the first place? Address the root causes like poverty, mental health issues, and lack of affordable housing.
Exactly. And UBI could help address those root causes. It could provide a safety net for people at risk of homelessness, preventing them from falling into crisis.
It's also worth noting that this is just a pilot program. It's not a permanent solution. The goal is to gather data and learn what works and what doesn't.
So, it's an experiment. Using homeless people as guinea pigs doesn't seem very ethical to me.
I understand your concern, Otto, but the pilot program is designed to help people, not harm them. And the participants will be fully informed about the risks and benefits before they agree to participate.
And it's not like we're doing nothing for homeless people now. We have shelters, soup kitchens, and other services. But these services often aren't enough to address the underlying problems. UBI could be a valuable addition to the toolkit.
A valuable addition? Are we going to shut down the shelters and soup kitchens and just give everyone a check?
No, that's not the idea. UBI would complement existing services, not replace them. It's about providing a more comprehensive and effective safety net.
And it's about empowering people to take control of their own lives. Instead of being dependent on handouts, they can use the UBI to make their own choices and pursue their own goals.
Choices like buying drugs and alcohol. I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced that giving addicts more money is a good idea.
Addiction is a complex issue, and it's true that some people might use the UBI to fund their addictions. But the vast majority of people would use it to improve their lives, to find housing, to get treatment, to find work.
And we shouldn't let the fear of misuse prevent us from helping the people who really need it. UBI could be a lifeline for people experiencing homelessness, providing them with the stability and support they need to rebuild their lives.
Okay, maybe. But I'm still worried about the cost. £1,600 a month for every homeless person in Manchester? That's a lot of money.
The article mentions that the cost for a pilot program with 200 recipients would be £7.68 million for 2 years. It is significant.
But we also need to consider the costs of not doing anything. The costs of homelessness are enormous, both to the individuals involved and to society as a whole. UBI could actually save money in the long run by reducing those costs.
Save money? How? By enabling people to stay homeless, but with more money.
No, by helping people to find housing, to get jobs, to become self-sufficient. By reducing the need for emergency services, hospitalizations, and incarceration.
And by boosting the local economy. People who have more money tend to spend more money, which creates jobs and stimulates economic growth.
So, it's a magic bullet, solves homelessness, poverty, and economic stagnation all at once.
No, it's not a magic bullet. It's just one tool among many. But it's a tool that has the potential to make a real difference in people's lives.
And it's a tool that we need to explore, to test, and to refine. The Manchester pilot program could provide valuable insights into the potential of UBI to address homelessness and poverty.
All right, I'll be watching. And I'll be ready to criticize if it doesn't work.
Fair enough. But let's also be open to the possibility that it could work, that it could make a real difference.
Absolutely. It's about hope, about possibility, about creating a better future for everyone, and also the potential impact on educational reform.
Yeah, education. Let's not get too carried away.
It's all connected: education, homelessness, poverty, UBI. We need to think holistically if we want to create real change.
Holistic thinking? Sounds exhausting.
Maybe, but it's also necessary. Thanks, both of you. We're out of time for today.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.
Before we completely wrap up, though, I did want to touch on that piece from Green Left arguing for a universally accessible income guarantee.
Green left? Oh boy, here we go. Sounds like a socialist manifesto.
Well, it's important to consider perspectives from across the political spectrum. Even if we don't agree with everything, we can still learn something.
Exactly. The article makes the case that income guarantees would have a beneficial impact on people's well-being, citing experiments from the past.
Experiments from the past, like what? Hippie communes and failed socialist states?
They mention the New Jersey Graduated Work Incentive Scheme, the Seattle-Denver Income Maintenance Experiment, and the Manitoba Income Experiment. Those were actual studies conducted in the 60s and 70s.
And they found improvements in physical and mental health, living standards, and social relationships. Although, as the article points out, the payments weren't enough to lift people out of poverty on their own.
So they were useless then? Just a waste of taxpayer money?
Not necessarily. They provided valuable insights into the potential benefits of income guarantees. And more recent studies, like those in Ontario, Canada, Stockton in California, and Finland, have also shown positive results.
The article also challenges the criticism that UBI programs create a disincentive to work, citing a comprehensive review of 16 BIG trial programs that found little to no reduction in labor force participation.
Little to no reduction. So, there was a reduction then? I knew it. People get free money, they stop working.
The article clarifies that the reductions in work time were largely restricted to new parents, who opted to work less to spend more time with their children, or young workers who wanted to complete their studies. That doesn't sound so bad to me.
And the article argues that UBI could increase workers' bargaining power, allowing them to be more flexible with their working arrangements and to sustain protracted strike action.
Strike action? Sounds like a recipe for economic chaos. We need people to work, not to strike.
Well, workers have the right to strike, and UBI could provide them with the financial security to exercise that right without fear of losing everything.
The article also addresses the cost issue, suggesting that UBI funding could be sourced by replacing the current Social Security system, scrapping wasteful military spending, and implementing higher taxes on big corporations and the super rich.
Higher taxes on the rich? That's never going to happen. They'll just move their money offshore. And scrapping military spending? Good luck with that in this geopolitical climate.
Those are legitimate challenges, but we need to be creative and explore all possible funding sources. The current Social Security system is riddled with inefficiencies and waste. There's definitely room for improvement.
The article also acknowledges the risk that an authoritarian state could use UBI as an excuse to gut public services, which is a valid concern.
See? I told you. UBI is just a tool for governments to control people.
That's why we need to ensure that UBI is implemented with strong democratic safeguards and transparency, as we discussed earlier.
And the article concludes that UBI has the potential to profoundly transform society, improving the well-being and agency of workers and challenging the coercive wage labor system.
Transform society? Sounds like a utopian fantasy. I prefer to deal with reality.
And I prefer to strive for a better world. UBI might not be a perfect solution, but it's worth exploring as a potential tool for creating a more just and equitable society.
Well said, Sarah. And that's a good note to end on. Thanks again for the insightful discussion, everyone.
All right, see you next time.
Goodbye.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us on UBI Unplugged. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of UBI and its potential to reshape society. There's one final point I wanted to sneak in before we really close. I think it ties UBI to educational reform in a specific way, by enabling personalized learning, even outside of traditional schooling. Think about the possibilities for adult learners who might not have the time or resources to pursue formal education. A UBI could give them the breathing room to take online courses, attend workshops, or even just dedicate time to self-study.
Self-study? You mean like watching YouTube videos? I don't see how that's going to lead to any meaningful skills development.
Don't underestimate the power of online learning. There are tons of high-quality courses and resources available online, often for free or at a low cost. And with a UBI, people could afford to invest in better equipment, like a decent computer or software, to support their learning.
Exactly. And it's not just about acquiring job skills. It's about pursuing lifelong learning for personal enrichment and intellectual growth. UBI could help create a more informed, engaged, and empowered citizenry.
Informed citizenry? I doubt it. Most people would probably just use the time to binge watch Netflix.
Maybe some would, but others would use the opportunity to learn new things, to explore their interests, to contribute to their communities. We shouldn't assume the worst about people.
And even if some people do choose to spend their time on leisure activities, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everyone deserves the right to rest and recharge. UBI could help create a more balanced and fulfilling life for everyone.
Balanced and fulfilling. Sounds like a spa retreat, not a serious economic policy.
It's both. It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, both economically and personally. And education is a key part of that.
Okay, now I think we've really covered it all. Thanks again, everyone. And remember, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the possibilities of UBI.
Goodbye for real this time.
Bye.